Everybody else will just be following him. Okay. So we'll move up here.
I got a couple of them. I just couldn't wear one tonight. That's the hell with it. I could do that too. It was too damn hot to be wearing one.
I'm going to go to the restroom one more time, especially before he puts this mic on.
trying to Photoshop.
I was going to send you a picture that said, I really like the new Raytown flag, and it was going to be the new flag, but instead of the anvil, it was going to be an orange road color.
That would have been hilarious. Hey, Charlie. Is this guy in the gray suit?
Channel 41, Taylor.
Oh, they brought that little bitty camera. I thought somebody said it's him. I said, I don't think so. Tell me maybe you come with his own camera.
Oh, no, that might be, that's Steve Pierce's son.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that one's Steve Pierce's son.
I don't even see. Where's the guy from 41
Right
there?
there in the black suit. I'm sorry, in the black suit. Same guy's the last.
That's what I thought. Since I started picking their new stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Right here. In the gray shirt.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to
Walk up there and get my seat. You want to hang out with me? Yeah.
Show. Color guard. And.
Good evening. Thank you for being here tonight. We have beautiful, nice weather to sit out tonight. I was talking with someone a few minutes ago that last year, if you were here, it was a little bit cloudy, a little bit rainy, and this is much better to sit outside and have a moment together this evening. Thank you all for being here. My name is Taylor Himness. I'm the morning anchor at Channel 41 here in town, and I'm honored to be here with you. I'm glad to say there's so many remembrances around Kansas City throughout the day. I got the chance to announce several of them on the air this morning, including this one. And I was thinking as we did so that how glad I was the number of them that we got to read through. There were many, many in the area that were going on, and I'm thankful for that. Here's what we know. Those are the words that the president of Abilene Christian University said on 9/11 that I will never forget. I was a student at Abilene Christian University in West Texas, and we had watched the coverage throughout the day. I remember being absolutely terrified because of how little we knew. And at ACU, there's a daily chapel service, a gathering of all the student body. And we gathered there that morning, filed in. It was the most quiet I'd ever heard that particular gathering. And the president of the university stood up in front and said, "Here's what we know," and proceeded to go through the events of the morning as best we could tell and inform a terrified student body made up of young people who, in many cases like me, were hundreds of miles away from their homes and their families and watching something they didn't understand. And he did his best to calm us and explain to us what had happened that morning and what we knew was for sure that morning. Here's what we know, are words that I'll never forget on that day. It occurs to me as we sit here, there are a lot of young people here to my right, and you'll hear them in just a moment, but the passing of time on days like this is something that I think marks us in different ways. I'm old enough now that I work with many people who were in elementary school or younger when this happened and have very little understanding. And I'm old enough now that I have a 7th grade son who came home today and said his homework for social studies was a timeline of 9/11. And he showed me on his laptop the things that he was supposed to fill in. And I understood in that moment, it kind of hit me all at once. This little fellow doesn't really have anything more than what these pictures and words are. He doesn't have the television memories that I have. He doesn't have the here's what we knows that I have and that so many other people have. And that passage of time marks us in different ways. And that kind of struck me today with him and tonight with the young people sitting here. I'm very thankful that you are all here. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to be able to hear from several people tonight. And I'm thankful that you're here to pass more time and remembrance with us this evening. Our first speaker is Steve Pierce from Mule Block Funeral Care and co-executive director for the Catholic Cemeteries of Kansas City and St. Joseph. Please welcome him.
Thank you, Taylor. I just want to take a moment just to, first of all, welcome you and thank you for being here this evening. But I want to recognize some of those that are instrumental in making this event a success. It's growing every year. There's more people here every year. So just want to take a moment to, Taylor, first of all, thank you for taking the time and coming and being with us this evening. Unfortunately, Mayor Clinton Lucas was not able to attend, but with us this evening we have Raytown Mayor Mike McDonough, Kansas City Police Department Color Guard, Rifle Volley Team, and Police Chief Stacy Graves with us. Kansas City Fire Department Color Guard Assistant Fire Chief John Baker and Battalion Chief Tim Shield. The Independence Missouri Fire Department. We have the Simpson-Hoggett Marine Corps League with us this year. Thank you. American Legion District Commander Tom Tanner, VFW District Commander Jerry Youngblood, American Legion Post 189 Commander John Williams, David Baker, Bill Dunn, and Rifle Volley Team. We also have the VFW Color Guard and Deacon Mike Lewis, the Kansas City Fire Department Associate Chaplain. And we are blessed to have the Scion Choir again with us this year. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us and providing our music this evening. We also have Charlie Passantino, who I want to recognize as the co-executor of the Catholic cemeteries. Also, a very big thanks to Jenny Murtis, who's back here, and she, every year, she tries to hide, but if it weren't for Jenny, none of this would happen. None of this would be possible. Jenny, thank you so much for all that you do, and she puts a lot of time and effort into making this event a success, so thank you. I want to thank Kenny Gilbert, the general manager of the Catholic cemeteries, and all of his staff that helped put this together, moved all the equipment, made the sound possible here. So thank you. And also, John Tootle is our bagpiper this evening, and thank you, John, for taking the time to be here. I know most of us here do remember exactly where we were 23 years ago. 23? Yeah, 23 years ago. I know exactly where I was. I was in the car when the radio came on. I was heading to church. And I remember that the priest, when I got there, was in tears because we just realized that it wasn't an accident, and it was truly an act of terrorism. I'll never forget that day. It's still very, very clear. But every year, we want to continue to honor those that we lost, and those that help serve and take care of those people and risk their lives. So thank you all to our first responders, our veterans. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
I'm going to echo some of the people that Steve just introduced here, because what we're going to do now is I'm going to announce the people that you're about to see and hear from, and then after I get through with the announcements, I'll ask you to stand. But the color guard is led by John Tootle on bagpipes and includes the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department and Fire Department, and the Veterans of Foreign Wars. They'll come in and do presentation of the colors, and immediately following that, the Notre Dame de Sion High School choir, led by Elizabeth Mulkey, will sing our national anthem. So if you would, please rise for both of those. remain standing if you would, because at this time I'd like to introduce David Baker, American Legion Post 99, for our pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And at this time, I'd like to introduce Deacon Mike Lewis, Kansas City Fire Department chaplain, for tonight's invitation.
Let us lift up our hearts to a loving and merciful God. We remember and honor all the lives that were lost on 9/11/2001. This date carries a heavy burden of memory. This day does not pass in the calendar without our remembering. We remember images of death and destruction, images that the human eyes was never meant to see. We remember words our ears were never meant to hear. And the tender last words of husbands and wives who would never embrace again. We imagine the feeling of emptiness in the arms of children, who at the end of the day could not find mom or dad for the welcome home hug. And we remember our own feelings of emptiness as our sense of security, as our own confidence in a predictable order of life and work were radically shaken. This date, 9/11, carries a burden of memory. We remember the heroism. We remember the many lives that were lost saving others. We remember all those who suffered and died, and we grieve for them still. Friends and strangers alike, along with their family and friends. Of course, this date, 9/11, carries a heavy burden of memory. And it is right that in our memory, that we should look to a bright and hopeful future. This prayer of remembrance of this profound loss also seems to give us a deep longing for peace and justice in this land. And with this prayer, we need to commit ourselves to the necessary actions that will make this a more peaceful land, a more peaceful world, a more peaceful city, and a more peaceful country. And so we bless the memory of those we have lost. But we also look to the future with hope and encouragement that we are a good people and a strong nation. So let us always ask a loving and merciful God to watch over us, bless us, and keep us in his loving care. Amen.
If you're still standing, you can feel free to take a seat. I mentioned my memories earlier, and I think everyone here has memories of what they remember seeing. But another thing that strikes me about the memories of 9/11 is that I'm from a small town, about 1,200 people, and I had never really, thankfully, needed to have any encounter with police or fire departments. I'd never really watched them in action, definitely on a large scale, being from a small town. And in addition to the horrific things that we saw played out on television 20 plus years ago on that day, I was changed forever in my understanding of what police and fire departments do because I watched it live on television. And I watched the actions of so many men and women that were nothing short of heroic. Minute after minute, hour after hour of that live coverage of what was happening on television, and the days after that, we got to see what heroes look like and sound like on a pretty regular basis anytime we turn on the television. That's another strong memory of 9/11 for me. And tonight we're going to honor that as well. As we mentioned earlier, Kansas City Mayor Quinton Lucas did not make it here tonight, so I'd like to welcome Police Chief Stacey Gregg to the podium.
With honor, I stand before you tonight representing the men and women of the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department. It's remarkable that the events of 9/11 took place nearly a quarter of a century ago, because it still sometimes feels like yesterday. It feels fresh, and the memories of that day remain vivid. Because of its everlasting importance, we all know exactly where we were and what we were doing. On the morning of September 11th, I was getting ready for work, and I turned on the TV, and what I saw did not make sense. I saw the second plane hit the tower. And even though I witnessed it live on TV, I couldn't comprehend what was happening. My heart, like yours, was broken. When you think about the term first responders, these are people who have signed up to be the first, to rush in and help others in crisis. These are people ready at a moment's notice to give themselves to complete strangers. Like all of my fellow officers that day, I had a duty. I turned off the TV and I went to work, not knowing that the terror we had just seen would make its way to Kansas City. I patrolled around Kansas City with my fellow officers to ensure our community would be safe. And it was a hard day, but although it was nothing like the experiences first responders lived through in New York, Washington, D.C., Pennsylvania. On September 11th, first responders on the East Coast witnessed firsthand evil's cruelty and aftermath. Hundreds of these first responders perished. Not one or two, which would have been too many, but hundreds of human beings. These were real people who rushed in to help, even though they may have been scared, even though they knew that they were in immediate danger. Those first responders sacrificed their lives for their communities. Without knowing it, they gave their all for this country. Their actions and courage inspired Americans, showing others the value of public service. Gratefully, I am here today to tell you that the selflessness of these heroes lives on today in our first responders. To be a police officer, you have to be willing to fight for others. You have to be willing to stand tall and true when it's easier to turn the other way. You have to be willing to lead, because that's the expectation. Being an officer today is demanding, and yet it's a privilege that the KCPD embraces. Our officers represent the best of Kansas City, coming from different backgrounds and upbringings, who are united in the mission of service. They are very much like the first responders from 9/11, who banded together for the good and safety of others. It makes me proud to see the courage in our officers today. It mirrors the character we saw on display 23 years ago. But it wasn't just the first responders. It was also those who were in the buildings, on the streets, that also ran in to help. Tonight we give thanks to the innocent first responders who gave the ultimate sacrifice on September 11, 2001. And we remember the thousands of innocent Americans who lost their lives that day. We remember that first responders and everyday Americans involved in the rescue and recovery efforts who later died from exposure to toxic conditions. We acknowledge the members of the military who would later fight the war on terror to protect our country, some of who died in the line of duty. It shouldn't take a tragedy on American soil, or otherwise, for Americans to remember we're better together. Remember the strength and resolve of the American spirit, and that we're always better together, just like we were after 9/11. Thank you for allowing me to share this important occasion with you. We must always honor and remember all of the people who perished on September 11, 2001. May God bless you and keep you and our country.
Thank you, Chief. Now please welcome to the podium Kansas City Assistant Fire Chief John Baker.
Good evening, and thank you for coming. As a firefighter, when you wake up in the morning for your shift, prepare to leave your home and family for the next 24 hours. Make sure everything is in order. Make sure your family has everything they need in your absence, and you say your goodbyes and I love yous, and your hugs when you out the door. All the while, in the far depths of your mind, knowing this could be for less time. As you drive to the firehouse, your mind fills with the possibilities of what the day might bring, what you might face, and the decisions you may have to make. When you enter the firehouse, the air is filled with the smoke of strong coffee, a hint of smoke from the structure fire from the night before, and the chatter of firefighters briefing one another on the previous day's events and ribbing each other about which shift does it better. You pull your gear out of the locker, check to make sure it's good to go, get on your rig, you go over your fire truck and tools from front to back, top to bottom, make sure you're ready to answer the call as soon as it rings the bell. Soon the previous shift is gone. The conversation shifts to today's events. What do we have to get done today? What house duties need to get taken care of? And what training is on the schedule? But most importantly, what are we going to eat? So this happens in every firehouse, in every city, in every town across the country, every day. This is the life of a firefighter. On September 11th, 2001, this was happening in the firehouses across New York City, as it happened throughout FDNY's storied history. It all changed at 8:46 a.m. Eastern Standard Time when American Airlines Flight 11, piloted by terrorists, crashed into the North Tower of the World Trade Center, forever changing FDNY and America. It was followed by a second plane, United Airlines Flight 175, at 9:03 a.m., crashing in the South Tower. Followed by a third plane, American Flight 77, striking the Pentagon at 9:37 a.m., and United Flight 93 crashing into a field in Shanksville, Pennsylvania at 10:03. America was under attack. When the first plane struck the towers, the bells went off in firehouses across the city. Firefighters mounted their fire trucks and headed out the door just as they had done 1,000 times before. Black smoke filled the sky over lower Manhattan on a bright sunny September day as fire trucks and emergency responders raced to the scene with only one thing on their mind: helping those in need. Arriving on the scene, members of the FDNY faced what every firefighter dreads the most: a massive high-rise fire at the city streets with limited access and limited egress. They did not hesitate. They gathered their gear and their equipment. They entered the North Tower and began their ascent. Even after the second plane hit the South Tower, it was obvious this was not an accident. They did not stop. They continued aiding individuals out of the structure and working their way some 80 floors above the streets in hopes of saving lives. At 9:59 a.m., the South Tower collapsed, followed by the North Tower 29 minutes later. Just like that in FDNY, the fire service in America was changed forever. 343 members of the FDNY gave their lives and paid the ultimate price in the name of service. That far off thought in the back of their minds, and the minds of their loved ones, when they had left for work that morning, that became a reality. That hug, that kiss goodbye, I love you, as they walked up the door, came to last. As a fire service and a nation, we mourn this tragic loss, and we united. We stood together. We declared that we will never forget. We will never forget this tragic declaration. And we'll never forget the loss of those who gave their lives in the service of others. This is why we're here today. To honor that promise, to honor their sacrifice, and to honor their memory. 343 brave and courageous firefighters died that day. A silent and untold story is more than a number have died since that because of cancer-related issues during the recovery and rescue efforts at 911. We honor these individuals and the thousands who lost their lives that fateful September day. We stand there today to honor that promise and stand with FDNY and the families of the fallen and never forget.
introduce Raytown Mayor Mike McDonough for his thoughts this evening.
Good evening. I'm so honored to be here once again in this sacred place, among some of those that have given their lives that are buried here. The morning that those two planes were hijacked and flown into the Twin Towers, I too was getting dressed in my uniform as I was a police officer in Raytown, Missouri for 40 years. Just like Chief Stacy said, Chief Graves said, I thought it was an accident. I was just amazed somebody could have done that on such a clear, shiny, wonderful day. When I saw the second plane hit, and I was totally stunned. I couldn't get my uniform on fast enough to get to work because I knew we were under attack and we all had no idea what else was going to happen. As those two planes hit the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center in New York, the third plane crashed in the Pentagon in Washington, D.C., and a fourth plane was brought down by the brave passengers and crashed into a field in Pennsylvania. Nearly 3,000 people were killed in these attacks, and thousands more were injured. The shock and devastation of that day reverberated around the world, and for those of us that were on duty that day or were alive during that time, we will never forget what that felt like. Today we remember those who were lost, the 297 victims. We honor the first responders who rushed into danger to save lives, the 8 emergency medical technicians, the 60 police officers, and the 343 firefighters. We have first responders who were there, who have died of their exposure to the elements at those scenes. The number of those responders that have fallen since that time due to their exposure now outnumber those that died that fateful day. We pay tribute to the resilience of the American people who came together in the face of tragedy. In the years since 9/11, our nation has faced many challenges, but we have always remained strong and united. We have learned that even in the darkest of times, there is hope. We have learned that even in the darkest time, there is hope, and we have learned that the human spirit is capable of incredible things. Let us remember, too, that we are not just a certain political party, a color, a religion, a gender. Let us remember that we are brothers and sisters in a great experiment of a constitutional republic, one country ever evolving, striving for all to be free. Let us work at reviving that patriotism that we felt that day and the years following, and remember how we felt that day and how in the adversity we came together as Americans, one nation under our Creator, with liberty and justice for all as our goal. As we reflect on the events of 9/11, let us recommit ourselves to the values that make America great. Let us strive for peace, justice, and equality for all, and let us never, never forget the sacrifices made by those who were taken from us so very, very too soon, and those that still wear the uniform as firefighters and police officers who are there to save people, to work with people, and to try to make our lives safer and better every single day. Thank you for being here today, and God bless these United States of America. Thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. I'm thankful for all of those perspectives tonight because just as I mentioned earlier, we all have our own memories, those of us who were alive when it happened. Those are very different that were just mentioned there. And as stark and strong as my memories are, they are not impacted by I was wearing a uniform that day or I had a family member wearing a uniform that day and how different that day had to have felt if you were a firefighter or a first responder or a police officer even 1,000 miles away here in Kansas City, of what you were about to have to do potentially, and what your day might include. I can't really fathom that, so I'm thankful for that perspective tonight. I'm also thankful for the words that this mayor just said there at the end about who we are as a country. You may have seen, sometimes social media is not the best thing, but one thing I have seen kicking around social media this week about this particular day is the best way to honor 9/11 is to remember who we are, who we were on 9/12 that day. You may have seen that kicking around as well, and I thought that was a pretty strong thought, echoed there in the mayor's thoughts. At this time, I'd like to introduce John Williams, Commander of American Legion Post 189, for the fireman's prayer this evening.
Welcome, everybody. 6 years ago, President Trump signed a proclamation designating September 11, 2018 Patriot Day in honor of the victims of the tragic terror attacks nearly 2 decades ago or more now, and every hero has given his life since that day to protect our safety. The proclamation, which was signed the 17th anniversary of the 9/11 attack horrors, honors the memories of the souls we lost and pays tribute to the patriots who sacrificed their lives in defense of our freedom. On Patriot Day, we honor the memories of the nearly 3,000 lives we've lost since September 11, 2001, and every hero who's given their life since that day to protect our safety and our freedom. The proclamation said, we come together today to recall this timeless truth. When America is united, no force on earth can break us apart. Our values endure, our people thrive, our nation prevails, and the memory of our loved ones never, ever, ever fades away. Through the dust and the ashes, we emerge resilient and united, bruised but not broken. This next prayer, this is called the Fireman's Prayer, and I can guarantee you this is in every city firehouse, every county firehouse, every village, and every township across the land. It's called the Firefighter's Prayer. It says, when I am called to duty, God, whenever flames may rage, give me the strength to save some life, whatever be its age. Help me embrace a little child before it is too late, or save an older person from the horror of that thing. Enable me to be alert and hear the weakest shout, and quickly and efficiently to put the fire out. I want to fulfill my calling and give the very best in me, to guard my every neighbor and protect his property. And if according to your will I am to lose my life, please bless with your protecting hand my children and my wife.
Commander Williams, thank you. At this time, I'd like to invite a group of people to come up for our laying of wreaths tonight. If you watch your camera or phone, this may be a moment you'd like to take a photo of or video, so be prepared for that. I'm going to invite Chief Stacy Graves, Assistant Chief John Baker from KCFD, Tom Tanner, Commander of American Legion 5th District, and Don Harris, Commander of VFW 5th District, to come and lay wreaths this evening. this time, I ask the audience to pause for a moment of silence as we observe this moment. And take a moment as you observe this moment of silence to picture one of the people who was in New York that day. You don't have to know them to think of them and what they were going through and what they may still be going through today, 20 plus years later. Keep your thoughts with a specific person tonight and don't let this moment go to waste. Thank you. At this point, I'd like to introduce once again Notre Dame DeSion High School Choir, led by Elizabeth Monkey, singing Lift Every Voice and Sing.